Hello, YouTube, and Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith was good, with a few flaws. Going into this movie, I decided to get into the hype that went with this movie at release. I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes reviews, I looked at the trailers, I looked at everything just centered around the movie's release. I didn't look at recent reviews, I didn't look at recent blogs, I looked at the stuff that just came out with the movie. And spoilers for this entire video. I can't talk about it without spoiling it, so you've been warned. Um, this whole movie clearly is the story that George Lucas wanted to tell, and a great elaboration on it is in this book, Labyrinth of Evil by James Luceno. This is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. This is a completely hobby channel, but it's a good book, and I like good books. So check it out. It talks about the events leading up to Episode 3. So when Anakin and Obi-Wan are going to the Jedi Temple and they're talking about how many times they've saved each other's life, and Obi-Wan is saying, well, that time on this planet doesn't count. And you're like, well, what was that? This book talks about that. So check it out. To the movie. General Grievous, I like his character. He is really cool. I briefly touched on that in my Episode 2 review. This movie is good. I like it. Right from the beginning, the space battle over Coruscant, that theme. I hadn't heard those themes in so long. I was going through the movie just like this, just like, yes! And it was good. I like that there's almost no Jar Jar in this movie. I should come clean here. In my Episode 1 Phantom Menace review, I said I was fine with Jar Jar. But there's a side point here. I also said that he's annoying. I'm fine with him, but he's annoying. So even though I don't mind Jar Jar, I appreciated that he isn't there. It's like a good cheeseburger. I can eat a burger that has lettuce on it, but I appreciate it more if it's not on there. Same with onions. Anyways, this movie was good. Count Dooku returns, Christopher Lee. He's in a bit of the movie, but his appearance in this movie, I have already warned you of spoilers, so his character dies. But he has to make way for Darth Vader because Count Dooku is Palpatine's apprentice. So, I like the droid army. I like Anakin's turn is really fast. I'll touch on that in a few minutes. But Anakin and Obi-Wan in Episode 4, I'll review that one very soon. Obi-Wan says to Luke, when he's talking about his father, he says, your father was a good friend. I believe that, but based on what we see in the prequels, we don't really get a lot of that. I get that they argued, that they disagreed, that Anakin was arrogant. There's one scene in this movie where Anakin apologizes to Obi-Wan for being arrogant, that he hasn't been appreciative of his training. And it's a nice scene. And even when you look at Obi-Wan's face as Anakin is saying these things, he's just like he's surprised to hear Anakin's apology. So that was a bit amusing. There's a lightsaber fight that happens between Obi-Wan and Grievous. Grievous uses 4 lightsabers. That is cool. Ask anybody. He has 4 lightsabers. That's cool. Granted, he loses them right away, and it's not a real long-lasting fight, but it's cool. I like the planet of Utapau, or Utapau. Every fan, I'm sure, is going to say it differently. That planet was really cool. It had a lot in it. And in this scene, next time you watch this movie, at the very beginning, when Anakin and Obi-Wan have saved the Chancellor and their ship is flying into the Jedi Temple building, their ship is like here. If you look down here in the frame, you can see the Millennium Falcon flying in the air. I caught that. And I looked at it. I'm like, that's the Millennium Falcon. And sure enough, I looked up online, and yes, it's the Millennium Falcon. Cool little Easter egg. I'm sure I've heard about it before, but first time I noticed it. So if you haven't seen that, like fast forward the movie to that little section so you can see it. Really cool. Um, I like Ian McDiarmid's performance of Palpatine. Through all the prequels, clearly he was having a ball with his role and he was enjoying it. And of course, he plays the Emperor in the original trilogy, so that's really cool as well. Um, but I like this movie. I like Hayden Christensen, the guy that played Anakin. He did him way better in this movie than Attack of the Clones. I don't blame him for his dialogue in Attack of the Clones. I don't. This movie, I'm not sure, but I think this movie had a lot more sets than Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones looked mostly CG as well as Attack of the Clones did, unfortunately. But this one looked like it may have had more sets. I'm not sure, but it looked like it. Even if it's Palpatine's room, like his meeting room, the council chambers, the dueling area where Grievous and Obi-Wan are fighting, that hill on Mustafar where Anakin ends up near the end. Um, I'm sure a lot of it was CG. I'm sure a lot of it was green screen, but it looked better either way. Even if it wasn't a set, it looked better. And it might be the fact that this movie was made in 2005. Attack of the Clones was older, and there was a lot more technology at this time. I like this movie, but I can't spend the entire time praising it. I'm going to talk about some things that I didn't like. I did not like, of course, the beginning is great. The duel between Count Dooku, Obi-Wan, and Anakin is great. You see Palpatine telling Anakin to kill Dooku. That he's the Emperor at that point. You see it. I like when they land. I like when they get to the Jedi Temple building. But when he and Padme meet and they embrace, and it's like, oh, this is real sweet. That scene where she's telling Anakin that she's pregnant, there's a fair bit of emotion there, and that was surprising. But that scene is really one of only two moments of emotion that the two of them share in this movie. The other one is where there's no dialogue. It's when they're both staring out their windows of their respective suites and they're looking out and the camera focuses on Anakin and he's got a tear going down his cheek, and then it changes to Padme and she's looking out, and somehow you get the feeling that they know that they're looking at each other. And there's this real ominous choral theme that happens in it, and it just makes you just go, oh yes, it's great. That scene is nice, but I also don't like how quick Anakin's turn is. And looking into this movie when it first was coming out, I looked at some of George Lucas's promises for the prequel trilogy. He promised we were going to see Anakin's rise to being Darth Vader, and we were going to see why he got the name Darth Vader. The name Darth Vader, for those that don't know, basically means Father of Darkness. That's what it means. But the movie promised to say that. And it doesn't. Like, when Anakin finally... The reason he turns is because Palpatine promises that if he turns to the dark side, he will provide Anakin with the power to save Padme, which is a further improvement on the scene that really is really good, where the two of them are talking in this kind of Olympic... It's like an arts gallery. They're sitting in these chairs and they're watching this orb with all these ribbon-like things going through it, and they're talking. And Palpatine tells Anakin the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise, which, if you haven't seen the movie, clearly you don't care about spoilers at this point, so they're talking about this Jedi, this Sith, that had all this power, that he could keep the ones he cared about from dying, and that the only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, and he did, because his apprentice killed him in his sleep. And Anakin says, "Is there any way to learn this power?" And then Palpatine says, "Not from a Jedi." So when he knows that Anakin has had these visions of Padme dying in childbirth, he uses that and says, "If you turn to the dark side, I will give you the power to save her from certain death." And that's another thing I don't like in this movie. I don't like dream sequences. I think dream sequences are lame. I think that they really lack any kind of creativity. It 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 just doesn't add anything. I am sure they could have done the scene better. If Anakin was just sitting on the couch on the deck, well, whatever you want to call it, just the outer looking point into the city. If he was sitting there, you could see him maybe with his hands shaking a little bit, maybe a couple tears going down his eyes, just really struggling. And then Padme asking what was wrong, and then he says, "I just had a dream. I just had a vision." And then, kind of explain it to her, tell her a story, rather than have us see a dream of her dying in childbirth and then have him tell it to Padme again. So we have to hear about it twice. It kind of numbs the effect of it. That I didn't like. But other than that, Anakin's turn to being Darth Vader, the appearance of Darth Vader, it's pleasing to see. I enjoy this movie. Again, there are things I don't like, but there's more things I like than I don't like. And I have no problem with Darth Vader's no at the end when he learns that Padme ended up dying in childbirth. We learn from a broken heart, which I get it. It's a little poor for storytelling purposes, but it's okay. I understand it. I mean, from her perspective, she thinks Anakin is dead. She thinks that, she thinks everything's gone. So she doesn't really have a reason to live. She just thinks that everything is gone. But then she says a line, "I know there's still good in him." So does she think he's dead? Does she think she's alive? We don't know. But at the very end, you see Obi-Wan taking Luke to Tatooine, to the Lars family, where he ends up being years later in Episode 4. You see Leia being taken to the Organa family, and it ends off real nicely. And at the end, you see Vader and Palpatine standing next to each other, looking out at the construction of the Death Star. It ends off real nice. This movie is good. I enjoy it. It has a lot of enjoyable scenes. It has a few in it that are a little corny, a little bit on the nose, and a little bit that seem out of place. A lot of it's forced, but it's a good movie. I would give it about a 7.5 out of 10. It's a good movie. Watch it, enjoy it, and my review of Episode 4, A New Hope, or just Star Wars by what some people call it, will be coming very soon. So come back for more videos very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and join me for more fun videos in the future. Thank you for watching. Take care.